Er spricht zu Ihnen.
Speaking to you now is the chairman of the meeting and chairman of the supervisory board, Dr. Karl Ludwig Klein. Shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, I hereby open the 73rd annual general meeting of Deutsche Lufthansa AGM and warmly welcome you here in the meeting hall, and also welcome those joining us online. For our shareholders, the annual general meeting will be broadcast in full via our online service. The executive board and supervisory board are all present in person. Also with us is Notary Carsten Angerbach, who is taking the minutes of the annual general meeting. He's been doing so for many years and he's doing a very good job. As always, we'll start with a few formalities. Without bureaucracy, nothing is possible in Germany, as everyone knows. Your admission ticket has been exchanged for a general meeting card at the accreditation desks. Please keep the card safe. You will need it to take part in the voting later on. If you wish to speak here, you must register at the speakers table, which is located to your left of the stage and is already accepting requests to speak. Some of you have done so already. The order of the speakers will be determined in the course of this meeting. We will hold a general debate on all items of the agenda. If you leave the AGM in advance, please take a look at the rear of your card. If you want to authorize proxies from the company to vote for you, you can do so up to the end of the general debate. Please do not record shareholders here on the stage. Of course, the people can all be recorded, except for the notary, I'd say. Before we look at the agenda, I would like to commemorate our former CEO and chair of the supervisory board, Jürgen Weber. A year ago, Jürgen Weber passed away, aged 83. He dedicated his entire professional life to our company and left an indelible mark on it. Jürgen Weber was responsible for the turnaround, restructuring and privatization of Lufthansa in the 1990s. He demonstrated his strategic vision with the founding of the Star Alliance, and also the expansion of Frankfurt Airport is largely down to his efforts. He was always very customer-oriented. In each executive board meeting, I attended some of those, first came the customer questions. For many employees, he was someone who guided them. We commemorate a great personality. Jürgen Weber holds a place of honor in the history of our company. I kindly ask you to rise from your seats in honor and memory of Jürgen Weber.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The agenda for today's annual general meeting comprises 9 items. We begin, unsurprisingly, with agenda item 1, the presentation of the 2025 annual financial statements and the report on the current situation. The annual and consolidated financial statements, as well as the management report, were prepared by the Executive Board, reviewed by the Audit Committee and approved by the Supervisory Board. The 2025 annual financial statements have thus been officially adopted. Our auditors, EY, have issued an unqualified audit opinion on all items audited. I would now like to ask Mr. Schwor to present the report on the 2025 financial year and the group's current situation.
Meine sehr geehrten
Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, and looking around the room here, Lufthansians, and of course a warm welcome to everybody logged in online. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 73rd Annual General Meeting of Deutsche Lufthansa AG. Also on behalf of my Executive Board team, Grazia Vittadini Tilstreichert, Michael Niggermann and Dieter Franks. We look forward to the dialogue with you today. Today, for the first time since 2019, finally back here in person. Now, we usually report to you at the Annual General Meeting on the past financial year. In this very special anniversary year, I would like to broaden our perspective and reflect on the first 100 years of our history. In 1926, the first Lufthansa was founded in Berlin. It was the result of a merger of Junkers Luftverkehr and Aerollloyd. Junkers, as an aircraft manufacturer and operator, brought with it great technical expertise and the blue and yellow colours. Deutsche Aerollloyd was a passenger and cargo airline. Its emblem was the crane. This gave rise to a business model that to this day defines your company, ladies and gentlemen. Passenger transport, air cargo and technical services under the roof of an iconic brand. From the very beginning, the young airline was part of the infrastructure and an important driver of our export nation. At the time, Berlin was the third largest city in the world. Ambitious companies were conquering international markets with trade connections from Asia all the way to Latin America. And right at the forefront, Lufthansa. It offered a dense route network of domestic German and European scheduled flights, but at the same time, with great pioneering spirit, the first intercontinental flight routes were explored. The Pamir flights over the roof of the world remain legendary to this day in aviation. By the way, we would have needed a much larger stage for an annual general meeting back then, because in 1926, the founding year of the first Lufthansa, the supervisory board had 64 members. Today you can see that the emphasis is on quality over quantity in the supervisory board, but we'll come back to that in more detail in due course. Let's get back to our history for now. The darkest chapters of our history ensued as of 1933. The airline was increasingly incorporated into the establishment of a new air force. The first Lufthansa became an instrument of the Nazi regime. We are consciously confronting this period in our anniversary year because this is also part of our history. And because we can only call upon our heritage if it is accompanied by responsibility. With the end of the war, the first Lufthansa also ceased to have a reason to exist. It was grounded, banned, and liquidated. While air travel flourished around the world after the Second World War, Germany could only look on. For 10 years, post-war Germany was forbidden from operating its own airline. That is why the second Lufthansa was not able to restart flight operations until 1955. The company in which you hold shares today was inaugurated. And that with the help of the United States. Because there were neither German aircraft nor licensed German pilots. American pilots, who just 10 years earlier had been flying combat missions over Germany, were now training young German Lufthansa aviators in the cockpits of American aircraft because there were no German aircraft. In the 50s, for that new start, the Lockheed Superstar was emblematic. You can see that behind me and will be exhibited in our new Hangar 1 Conference and Visitor Center in Frankfurt. It's not only an icon of aviation, but also a symbol of the transatlantic partnership. This partnership is once again the subject of much discussion. It has been an uninterrupted cornerstone of our business success from 1955 to this day. And, ladies and gentlemen, a foundation and pillar of our Western world. The exchange between peoples is a good indicator of the quality of relations between Europe and the United States. Measured in flight passengers crossing the North Atlantic daily aboard our now 60 flights per day, the transatlantic partnership has never been stronger than today. However, even upon the launch of the second Lufthansa in the 1950s, North Atlantic routes, including the LH400, formed the backbone of the long-haul schedule, and thus the Crane, after its late restart, as I've already alluded to, embarked on an unparalleled catch-up race. This was particularly challenging because, as is well known to this day, our home market, Germany, has no catchment area comparable in size to London or Paris. Nevertheless, Lufthansa soon caught up again with the global airline industry. Decades shaped by the economic miracle and growth. The 1990s, however, were then entirely defined by privatization and necessary restructuring. The state stepped back as a shareholder, private shareholders increasingly took over, and in doing so gave Lufthansa entrepreneurial freedom. They thus enabled the turnaround needed at the time. For decades, we've been able to rely on your support. I would like to thank you, our shareholders, for this support. Ladies and gentlemen, you place your trust and invest your capital in the most important success factors of this company. In aircraft. Then, as now, cutting-edge technology, making the most effective contribution to climate protection, more than any ideology. But even more so, in people. People who make up our Lufthansa.
Im Namen der Kolleginnen und Kollegen.
Thank you very much on behalf of all the colleagues. This video shows our colleagues at our 100th anniversary celebrations in Munich. And for the final picture, we brought together all of the different departments required to operate one single modern long-haul aircraft. 24 pilots, 100 cabin crew members, 20 technicians, and 80 employees at stations, ground handling, cargo, flight training, IT, and administration. In total, each aircraft of this size creates and secures precisely these 220 jobs for Lufthansa employees, and each and every one of them shapes our company. But our unique company surely also shapes the life of each one of them. I'd therefore like to take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of the more than 100,000 employees of our group, this unique team.
Einige sind heute hier, Viele hören.
Some are here with us in the room, some are joining us online. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for the applause. Your trust in this team and our company paid off again over the past year. The Lufthansa share gained 36% in value, performing significantly better than DAX and MDAX. Including the dividend, you enjoyed a total return of over 40% in 2025. For the past financial year, we are today proposing a dividend of 33 cents per share. That is 10% more than the previous year. The total distribution of profit of approximately 400 million euros corresponds thus to a payout ratio of approximately 30%. You participate in the increased profit of your company, as do those who generated it. Because we've paid out performance-related variable remuneration of a similar magnitude to our employees covered by collective agreements. And that brings me to the report on the past financial year. We deliberately designated 2025 as a transformation year because we are carrying out numerous transformation processes, and as such it was a very successful year. The turnaround program of our core, Lufthansa Airlines, is by far the most important part of our transformation. We made significant progress in that regard in 2025. Above all, in terms of operational performance. The crane was flying punctually and reliably again in 2025. As our customers and shareholders rightly expect of us. That's what you expect of the management, with metrics last achieved 10 years ago. Including ITA Airways, our passenger airlines were able to welcome over 150 million passengers on board our aircraft. I would like to express my sincere thanks to our customers at this point for their loyalty and allegiance, and I am sure I am also able to do this on your behalf.
Außerhalb der Lufthansa
Outside of Lufthansa Airlines, the group looks back on one of the best years in its history. Overall, the group generated a group revenue of 39.6 billion euros, thus bringing us closer to the 40 billion euro mark than ever before. We were able to increase the group's operating result, our adjusted EBIT, by 20% to 2 billion euro, and we thereby achieved a margin of 5%. With a revenue share of 30 billion euros, all passenger airlines were profitable and contributed well over half of the group's operating profit. Lufthansa Airlines did indeed improve year on year, however, achieved only a modest plus of 140 million euros and thus a margin of 0.9%. The successful execution of the turnaround therefore remains our priority within Lufthansa Airlines. Already this year, the program is expected to deliver an earnings impact of 1.5 billion euros and some 2.5 billion euros by the end of 2028. These improvements will be achieved with three main levers. Firstly, the modernization of our fleet and products. Last year alone, Lufthansa Airlines took delivery of 9 out of a total of 23 new aircraft. The fleet renewal is gathering more speed this year. Of the group's total 44 new deliveries, so we're talking about pretty much 1 new aircraft each week, 20 long-haul jets alone will go to Lufthansa Airlines. And they're all equipped with our new Allegris premium cabin, which has been extremely well received by our customers thus far. This is borne out by our customer satisfaction scores, which improved by more than a quarter last year. And incidentally, that's a positive trend that continued into the first quarter of this year. But Allegris also delights our financial controllers, because in the new cabin our guests can specifically choose between different seating options, and the associated additional income in the 7-digit range already significantly exceeded our expectations this year, which were already optimistic, and they continue to do so. The second turnaround lever lies in the accelerated growth of Lufthansa City Airlines and Discover Airlines. Both airlines are now highly cost efficient and are now an integral part of our offering in Frankfurt and Munich. The third lever of the turnaround encompasses many hundreds of individual measures for additional savings, additional efficiency, and additional revenues. With these three levers, we aim to achieve our medium-term margin target of 8 to 10% in the core of the group as well. Our most profitable passenger airline, Swiss, is already operating at that level today. It landed another pleasing result last year, even if it did remain a little bit below the previous year with an adjusted EBIT of 600 million euros. Austrian Airlines slightly improved its result and contributed 81 million euros to the passenger airline's profit. Posting an adjusted EBIT of 28 million euros, Brussels Airlines was unfortunately significantly below the previous year. Eurowings was recognized as the best airline in Europe in its segment last year, achieving an adjusted EBIT of 132 million euros. The positive development of Lufthansa Cargo continued in the reporting year. With 324 million euros, it improved its full-year result by 30%. So I can safely say that our air cargo delivered in 2025 as well. The same applies to Lufthansa Technik. With an operating result of 603 million euros, it almost matched the previous year's record level. It's particularly pleasing that our youngest group airline, ITA Airways, has already made a positive contribution to the group's success with 90 million euros. That amount is reported in the income from equity investments because ITA, as a 41% minority holding, is not yet fully consolidated. However, that is set to change soon. Last year, we promised you, our shareholders, the fastest airline integration in our history. Within just 18 months of taking over the first 41% tranche, we wanted to have largely completed the integration into our hub system. Not only have we kept that promise, we've actually exceeded it. All customer-facing interfaces are already integrated today, with the exception of North Atlantic flights, where regulatory approval for our merger is, as is well known, still pending. Passengers already experience ITA Airways as an integrated part of the Lufthansa Group, with unified booking, sales and fare systems, with the Miles and More Frequent Flyer program, Star Alliance membership, and access to our global network of premium lounges. Integration is also making progress in the cargo business. Lufthansa Cargo has been marketing ITA Airways cargo capacity since last year, which alone equates to the additional capacity of 3 Boeing 777 freighters. In the light of this success story, we have decided to already exercise our option to acquire a further 49% in June of this year. ITA will thereby also be organizationally and financially fully integrated in the Lufthansa Group as of 2027. It will contribute financially to the group's success and create sustainable value for you, ladies and gentlemen.
Wir haben ein paar Italien.
I can see that we have some Italy fans here in the room with us, and quite right. Now, I started by speaking about the first and the second eras of Lufthansa. The first ended in ruins in 1945. The second began in 1955, and then transitioned after the turn of the millennium into the current third era. Deutsche Lufthansa AG became the nucleus of a European Lufthansa group. The acquisition of Swiss in 2005, Brussels Airlines in 2008, Austrian Airlines in 2009 laid the foundations for our current multi-hub, multi-airline system, still with Lufthansa as the core brand in Munich and Frankfurt at the center, and national network airlines in Zurich, Brussels, Vienna, and now also in Rome. We grow to create value for you. But where necessary, we also consolidate. With the recently completed early grounding of CityLine, following the closure of the equally unfortunately non-viable SunExpress Deutschland and Germanwings, we have now completed the strategic consolidation of our German passenger flight operations. Together, we want to find perspectives for the affected employees in other areas of the group. Strategically, we are now efficiently positioned for the future, however, with our core brand at the center, complemented by Lufthansa City Airlines as a feeder airline, the leisure focus of Discover Airlines and Eurowings as a point-to-point specialist for flights outside our hubs. Added to that, we have our globally leading Lufthansa Technik and Lufthansa Cargo as further pillars of our business model. That is how we have been able to and how we can compensate in Germany for our historical and geographical disadvantage of not having a catchment area and hub the size of London or Paris. That is our strategy. That is our recipe for success, and that is our path into the future. Now, of course, on paper, a homogeneous group with just one airline, one hub, just one brand in one segment would be simpler, like the model employed by most of our state-owned competitors. However, this is simply not an option we have. As a national airline with only one home market, we would no longer stand a chance in global competition. Lufthansa is thus emblematic of Europe, because this logic also applies to our home continent. No single European country can take on the world powers of the USA or China or India as equals, or conclude free trade agreements as recently with Latin America or India. In a united Europe, however, anything is possible. For us in aviation too, pooling resources and networks and leveraging synergies under the roof of a strong group is therefore a strategic necessity to be able to remain at the high level globally, and we are proud to be implementing that with increasing success. With 40 billion euros in revenue and a group fleet of 840 aircraft, your company, the Lufthansa Group, is number one in Europe and the world's largest airline group outside the USA. We've achieved this because we have successfully capitalized on growth and internationalization. And we will continue to do so in the future. Already today, less than 20% of our revenues originate in Germany. Less than half of our network airlines aircraft are based at our German hubs, Frankfurt and Munich. And yet, we are nevertheless affected disproportionately by the excessively high costs of Germany as an aviation location. We must continue to minimize this disadvantage and seize additional international growth opportunities with investments in ITA Airways or, for example, in new technical facilities in Porto and Calgary. However, as a consequence, this also means that Germany will participate less and less in the global success of the Lufthansa Group. We must continue to urge policymakers to translate the growing awareness of the aviation sector situation into genuine, tangible relief from these huge locational disadvantages. Aber we, of course, have to do our part as well. The more international we are, the more important our ability to successfully integrate organizations and cultures will become. We've set ourselves the goal of making cooperation within our group even more rigorous and efficient. On the one hand, because our customers want to use the breadth of our airline's offering as seamlessly as possible. On the other hand, of course, to simply become even more profitable. By committing ourselves to medium-term financial targets, we have made a pledge to you, our shareholders. By 2030 at the latest, we want and shall raise our margin to a level of 8 to 10%. And in doing so, increase the return on capital employed to 15 to 20%. At the same time, we've set ourselves the goal of generating at least 2.5 billion euros in free cash flow per year. Achieving these targets is also part of the evolution into the third era of our history that I've already alluded to. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We're taking a group of airlines and transforming them into a synergistic and integrated Lufthansa group with clear rules not only for cooperation and collaboration, but also with clear rules for the allocation of your capital. There will still be room for entrepreneurial independence, brands and market responsibility, but significantly more commonalities within the group, more synergies. Because in particular amongst our passenger airlines, we have made a great step in standardizing processes, consolidating networks and merging organizational units. We are simplifying structures and pooling tasks. Our umbrella brand Lufthansa Group, which as of now will bear the crane emblem, is becoming the ever more visible common thread there. Through its presence, for example, on all group aircraft, it interacts directly with our passengers, who will also see the crane on their boarding pass when they check in with Eurowings, Edelweiss or Air Dolomiti, or if they go into an ITA Airways lounge in Rome or Milan. The Lufthansa Group brand symbolizes and embodies us as a European airline group. Our consistent evolution into the Lufthansa Group encounters, like any change, doubt and resistance at times. But after more than 35 years as a Lufthansiast, I am deeply convinced that all Lufthansa employees, including those who give voice to their protest, carry the crane in their hearts and want to secure the success of our company, of your company.
Meine Damen und Herren,
ladies and gentlemen, amongst those who carry the crane in their hearts is also our Supervisory Board Chairman, Karl Ludwig Kley. Today is his last day of work. Miss Kley is here in the front row and she'll be happy to see him more often at home. Mr. Kley, you've helped to shape the further development of our company for many, many years. You've been a member of the Supervisory Board since 2013 and its chairman since 2017. Prior to that, from 1998 to 2006, you were Lufthansa CFO. In two of the eras I've spoken about, you therefore bore crucial responsibility. And in doing so, you've been key to our transformation, our shared path of success with its highs and lows, its achievements and crises alike. And especially in times of crisis, you were always an unparalleled support for me personally. And I would like to thank you very much indeed for that.
Was viele nicht wissen,
what lots of people perhaps don't know is that before Mr. Kley, there was already a prominent figure from Cologne on the Supervisory Board of Lufthansa, Konrad Adenauer. He was already in the Supervisory Board of the first Lufthansa in 1926, and in 1949 he became Federal Chancellor of Germany. Mr. Kley, we're very, very curious and intrigued to see what you intend to do. And there's not much after the Supervisory Board of Lufthansa. Mr. Adenauer managed it. In any case, I think on behalf of everybody here, we can thank you wholeheartedly for everything you've done for our Lufthansa and wish you all the best.
Klein.
We wish you all the best of health and the greatest of courage for your great tasks ahead. And Ms. Clyde, thank you for letting him spend more time with me than with you. Maybe we would have been able to swap roles at some stage, but without such support at home, nobody would be able to achieve what Mr. Clyde did. So thank you very much indeed to you as well.
Meine Damen und Herren,
ladies and gentlemen, this year we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of our founding. We have grown through crises over the decades and emerged stronger from each of them. And it will be the same this time. That is my pledge. Aviation has been a growth industry for 100 years and it will remain so in the future. Despite all of the challenges and changes, we must continue to preserve aviation as a bridge to the world. Because where we have bridges, we create understanding, and with that, peace. And I think if we look at the newspapers, we can see that the role of aviation has rarely been more important than it is today. And hence, our mission for the future remains, as it has been from the very beginning, to connect people, cultures and economies in a sustainable way. Thanks to the Lufthansa worldwide, and also thanks to you, shareholders, we have evolved from the first Lufthansa in its modest beginnings of 1926 into the Lufthansa Group of 2026. You are all part of this unique success story. I thank you for your trust. Please continue to put your faith in us. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank, lieber Herr Spohr.
Thank you, Mr. Spohr. I had definitely planned not to feel this moved. It didn't work out as you have seen. Because of this, I'd like to briefly inform you on the work of the Supervisory Board in order to come back to a more matter-of-fact-like style. Thank you for your words. They really moved me. I'd like to report briefly on the work of the Supervisory Board because you find the more extensive version in the annual accounts that were made available to you. And the last year and also in 2026, the political situation came ever more into the focus of our meetings. Aviation is always the subject of rules and regulations and state intervention. In the course of the past 10 years, this effect has become ever stronger, especially the willingness of the European Union to create new rules, and the cost burden in Germany are becoming a greater competitive burden for Lufthansa. Also, there's the more difficult geopolitical situation, which really has a major influence on our business. And ever more faster and more flexible reactions on our part become necessary. And as the Supervisory Board, we dealt with these questions intensively. Another area was the competitive situation, especially the competition from Gulf state airlines. And this required many measures that the Management Board reported on. And before this background, the implementation of the strategies decided by the Supervisory Board and the Management Board were a point of reference for our meetings. In 2026, we dealt with the following strategic topics: the modernization of the fleet, the further internationalization with the acquisition of ITA Airways and new locations for Lufthansa Technik, and the further progress of the turnaround program of Lufthansa Airlines, and the continuation of our IT and digitalization strategy. At every meeting, we discuss things intensively with the management board, especially when it comes to the economic situation and the earnings situation. We also discuss customer satisfaction and measures to continuously improve customer satisfaction. These things were presented by the management board and discussed by us. I spent 9 years as chairman of the supervisory board, and this time ends today. And I'd like to make a few personal comments on this. Don't worry. This is very factual and not emotional at all. 2018 and 2019 were characterized by an overhaul of our governance systems. In 2023, the work of the supervisory board was added to by the further development of the ESG committee, and this is now an innovation and technology and sustainability committee. The reactions from institutional investors to all of these areas were very positive. Of course, it is difficult to really fulfill the wishes of all of our investors. On the one hand, different investors have different points of view, and in some cases, very difficult to harmonize these different viewpoints, and sometimes the expectations of the investors to the governance of a company change all the time, so sometimes it's hard to catch up. I'd like to point out to you, this regards the financial report 2025, some of these important things we only learned in 2026, so that makes it hard to take these things into account. You know that for many years it has been a personal project of mine to really focus the requirements of corporate governance to those areas that generate value. And you know me as someone from Cologne. As I sometimes say, the remainder, leave it aside. And the second focus of the work of the supervisory board was the strategy of the company. The strategy process was reset. And every year the strategy discussion is an important item on the agenda in the supervisory board meetings in the second half. But at every supervisory board meeting we look at implementation of the strategy. In 2022-2023, we had to pull together to survive the COVID-19 crisis and to maintain the company. And from then on, we had to stabilize the airline operation and to initiate and implement the stabilization program of the airline. During the past 2 years, we're able to focus more on the implementation of the strategy and the exercise of the option to buy 90% of ITA Airways is a milestone within these strategic projects, within the strategic project that I mentioned. And since I have a personal relationship to Italy, I'm very happy that on the last day of my tenure, I can say that ITA Airways will become part and parcel of the Lufthansa Airways. Benvenuta, Italy, ITA. With the end of this AGM, the terms of Karl Gernan, Wolfgang Nickel, and Carsten Knobel will end. Carsten Knobel told me that he will not stand for election again. He has been a member of the supervisory board since 2017. With his expert knowledge and years of experience and his career at Henkel all the way to the CEO of the company, he really enriched the work of the supervisory board. And he was a very important member of the audit committee and at yesterday's supervisory board meeting. I thanked him for his work, and I'll do it again on behalf of this body and personally. Dear shareholders, as you know, I will not be standing for re-election to the supervisory board either. So altogether, we will have 3 new elections for seats on the supervisory board. This will be handled under item 6 on the agenda, and the Supervisory Board proposes that you re-elect Karl Gernand and elect Wolfgang Nickel and Johannes Theisen as new members of the Supervisory Board for a term of 3 years each. You already know Mr. Gernand as a current member of the Supervisory Board. Wolfgang Nickel until May 2026 was the CFO of Bayer, and he's standing for election to the Supervisory Board for the first time. He was unable to come personally, but we have a video message of his where he would like to introduce himself. Shareholders, my name is Wolfgang Nickel.
Düsseldorf und Eindhoven und bin seit 8 Jahren als Vorstandsmitglied und CFO der Bayer AG tätig. Zuvor war ich für fast 5 Jahre CFO bei ASML in den Niederlanden sowie 3 Jahre CFO von Western Digital in den USA. Beides sind führende Technologieunternehmen. In meinen insgesamt 16 Jahren als CFO habe ich zudem umfassende Erfahrungen in den Bereichen Strategie, M&A, Transformation und insbesondere auch Digitalisierung gesammelt. Es ist mir eine besondere Ehre, für den Aufsichtsrat der Lufthansa-Gruppe nominiert zu sein. 100 Jahre Tradition, Menschen, Kulturen und Unternehmen zu verbinden, die Möglichkeit, nicht nur eine der größten, sondern auch eine der effizientesten Airline-Gruppen zu werden, sowie die Zusammenarbeit mit großartigen Menschen begeistern mich für diese herausfordernde Aufgabe. Sollten Sie mir Ihr Vertrauen schenken, verspreche ich Ihnen mein volles Engagement sowie Integrität und Unabhängigkeit. Leider kann ich heute nicht persönlich bei Ihnen sein. Ich wünsche Ihnen daher auf diesem Wege eine erfolgreiche Hauptversammlung.
Johannes Theisen, former CEO of E.ON, has been nominated to succeed me as member and chairman of the Supervisory Board. Since this is his first time standing for election to the Supervisory Board, Mr. Theisen will introduce himself to you personally. Chairman, dear Karl Ludwig, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, and members of the Supervisory Board and Management Board. I'm Johannes Theisen, and I'd like to ask you for your support and for your vote as a member of the Supervisory Board. Starting tomorrow, with your support, I'm supposed to follow in the footsteps of Karl Ludwig Kley, and you should know who you want to give your trust for this task. My wife and I live in Düsseldorf. We are happy. We have 4 adult sons and 3 small grandchildren in our family. And in this country, we have deep roots, and we're happy to live free in a unified Europe. Some of you may know me from my time as the CEO of E.ON, a position I held for many years. In the past 5 years, I was the president of the Administrative Council of a Swiss energy company, and I was in a global British company, and I worked in several scientific, cultural, and social institutions in Germany and near our home in Düsseldorf. Lufthansa Group is of great importance beyond Germany's borders for safe and stable connections of people and companies and for the transport of critical goods all over the world, especially at times of increasing geopolitical threats and tensions. We are here to help people between Frankfurt, Brussels, Zurich, and Rome. These people need independence and autonomy, and there's no other way we can live safely as Europeans in this new world and holding our own in global competition. For this, Lufthansa needs the support of politicians, of society, and we need the respective framework conditions. Building up on the proud 100-year history of our company, it is incumbent upon the company itself to provide for a safe future of Lufthansa. We need to better and more efficiently govern our business than anybody else could. Every day we need to win the trust of our customers again and again. And yes, for you, our shareholders, we need to earn the cost of capital. And we need to do this in the way that you expect, because this is your company after all, and we at the Supervisory Board and Management Board know this, and every employee should know that we are only keeping your assets safe in this company. I worked in many capital-intensive industries, from energy to steel. I learned about good governance, appreciated good governance both in Germany and Switzerland and England, and I've been able to go through major transformations in companies, and now I'd like to work for your Lufthansa company to make sure that it holds its own in competition, that it satisfies its customers, and that the employees are happy, and that your interests as investors are also addressed. I'm not an aviation or logistics expert, but in the past weeks and months, I really prepared myself. I visited almost all of the units of Lufthansa Group. I talked to people from the board and lots of executives and experts, and I dealt with the challenges that I have to expect. I have great respect for this task and what Karl Ludwig Klein did over many years, but now I look forward to this. Please give me your trust and your support so that together with the Management Board and the Supervisory Board and with all of the colleagues in Lufthansa, I can move along this way in the years to come. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, dear Johannes. I now move on to the remaining items on the agenda that I will now call. Under agenda item 2, you will decide whether the cash dividend of 0.33 per share should be distributed. Under agenda items 3 and 4, a decision will be made on the approval of the actions of the members of the Executive Board and the Supervisory Board. On the agenda item 5, you will vote on the approval of the 2025 remuneration report. Agenda item 6 is the election of the Supervisory Board members that we just presented. Agenda item 7 concerns the renewal of authorized capital A with the option to exclude subscription rights. Agenda item 8 is the authorization to issue financial instruments with the option to exclude subscription rights, the creation of conditional capital. And agenda item 9 concerns the election of the auditors. The Supervisory Board proposes that EY be re-elected as auditors and group auditors. In addition, EY is also to be appointed as the auditors of the sustainability reporting as a precautionary measure should such an audit be required following the transposition of European law into German law. Details of all agenda items and proposed resolutions are included in the convening notice of this meeting. I will now determine the attendance. Overall, taking into account postal votes, 615,588,821 shares will be represented, corresponding to 51.33% of our share capital. The attendance list can be inspected at any time in the foyer. At this point, the public part of our broadcasting ends. Shareholders, you have followed this stream up until now without having logged in. I kindly request you to go to the online service login page. To all the other spectators, I would like to say thank you for your attention, your interest in Lufthansa. Many thanks.